Hello everyone, this is Kiran and today we are going to talk about the UAT testing. UAT stands for User Acceptance Testing. This is the last step in the phases of testing. So let's move forward and see what acceptance testing means. So before proceeding to the UAT, I'll show you the notes wherein we know that the phases of testing are first unit testing, then we do integration testing, then we do system testing, and finally after the system testing is passed and there is a go ahead from the system testing team, we do UAT testing. So before the prerequisites of UAT is to get a go ahead from the system testing team. Now going back to the PPT, user acceptance testing is also known as customer acceptance testing because it is majorly a testing which is done just before the production release. So it's a very critical testing wherein there shouldn't be any showstoppers still open, because till that time all the bugs should have been wrapped up and we should be left with very minor cosmetic issues, if at all any, if we are allowing that. Otherwise there shouldn't be much issues left by this time because everything is tested well and we are about to go to the production, and before that there should be a client testing. That's why it's also called customer acceptance testing. Here the test cases are majorly the techniques which are used are black box testing techniques. So here everybody will be majorly focusing on the UAT test cases. So there are two types of UAT testing. We'll discuss about them too. They are alpha and beta. Now moving forward, let's see what's more. So it is done so that there is a better satisfaction in the customer group, so that there is a better the customer is satisfied but what we have done so far, and we can easily go ahead with the production releases. And of course the end users, we are making the entire software for the end users and they are the essential part of the entire process, so they must do the testing. So you must be wondering who does it, who does the testing and all. So we'll just talk about it. Hang on. So it is done by the testing team and the customer, so together we do. So let's understand. And it's also done in a simulated environment. So the software for which for whatever environment it has been meant for, will do the testing on that environment so that we can have a feel of the end users usage of the software, right? So moving forward, what are the prerequisites? As I said, so before we actually start on with the UAT testing, there should be entire business requirement documentation available. Of course, we have reached to the last phase of the testing, so we must be having the BRD of course with us, and the development of the software should be complete and all the unit integration and system testing should have been completed, and there should have been a go ahead by all the teams by now. Yes, no showstoppers should be open in the defects, no bottlenecks, no blockers. There is no critical issues should be still open by this time. Only then we should be actually moving ahead with the UAT, because this UAT testing or the stakeholder testing or the customer acceptance testing is a phase which is just before the production releases, isn't it? And you have to check that the traceability matrix is complete or not. That is, all the requirements have got one or more test cases or not. So we do that mapping, if you remember, from the requirement traceability class. So we have to make sure that that is also complete. We must have a separate UAT environment for testing. Very important, we must have a separate environment, because we should not be doing this testing on QA environment or dev environment, or of course not on the production, because we have not yet released to the production. So we will be doing it on a separate UAT environment. So I'll explain you what does this mean quickly on a diagram. Now here we have the diagram which shows different servers and different URLs and different users to the system. Let's say we are working on Amazon.com. This is the dev server. We are having different developers working on the system. So let's say this is developer 1. This is developer 2 and so on. Okay. Similarly, we have QA1 and we have QA2 also. And we can have more QAs also. And this is alpha testers. And this is beta testers. So we'll talk about this. And they are end users. So we can see different people working on different servers, isn't it? So if we see developer 1, this person is working on his own piece of code. He is doing the unit testing, pushing in the code here. Developer 2 is doing his own piece of testing. He is pushing in his code here. And these are getting integrated together. And it's sent to the QA team for doing integration testing. Now these two codes are integrated together and they are sent to the QA team for doing integration testing. So we do the integration testing and then this person is also pushing in the code. So this is also integrated together and sent with this for the integration testing. And when everything is pushed in, we get a together entire system for doing system testing. So we do the system testing. And then once the system testing is passed, we send it to the UAT for doing UAT testing. So there are different servers, isn't it? Like if there is dev server, the URL might be like dev.amazon.com. It's just an example. The URL can be different, but then it should be different from all different servers. So dev.amazon.com. So if you're working on QA, it will be qa.amazon.com, let's say. And if it is on UAT, it will be uat.amazon.com. And finally on production, it's www.amazon.com, which we are actually using. Right? So that's what it was said, that UAT testing should be on a separate server because it has to be very close to what production would look like. So UAT server will have data which is very, very close to the production and it should give a complete feel of the production server. So that's what it is. So here are developers, these are the QA, and here we have alpha testers and beta testers. So we'll go back to the PPT and come back to this diagram again to understand alpha and beta testing. But after UAT testing is passed, this code is sent to the production and there is final production release and people can use the software from the internet. So that's one of the last prerequisites of UAT testing, wherein we should have a separate server and the sign off should be given by the system testing team, as we already discussed that there should be a go ahead from the system testing team before starting on the UAT testing. Now let's talk about alpha and beta testing, then we'll understand all these terms, who does what. Now there are two types of UAT testing, one is alpha and one is beta. I will just quickly show you this and then we'll go back to that PPT also. Now imagine you are working in Infosys and you are working for Apple, right? And alpha testing will be done at Infosys site, developer site. So you working for Apple, you are working for a software for Apple and you are working as employed as an Infosys employee. So Apple is your client. So alpha testing will be done at the developer site. The company or Apple might send some people who will act as testers with you, and you will be doing the testing along with them. So the difference is alpha testing is done at the developer site, whereas beta testing is done at the client site. So Apple will appoint few people who will act as end users and they'll do the testing, and it is done at the Apple site. So the testing which is done at the client site by a team of people who will act as end users is called beta testing, whereas alpha testing is done at the developer side by the testers, developers, and there can be some team from the client side, not mandatory. So that is called alpha testing, whereas beta will be done by the end users. So that is the major difference between alpha and beta testing. So you can see, go through this PPT. Alpha is conducted by customer at the developer side, and it is performed by potential users like developers or the end users or the organization before it is released to the external customers and report the defects while we are doing the alpha testing. Now, this is called alpha release, whereas beta testing is done completely at the client side, that is the customer side, and it is done by end users, or there's a team appointed who will act as end users, or completely by end users too. You can see the softwares do beta releases, right, and end users find out issues. So that's how beta testing actually work, that end users should be doing the testing. So before any production release there are beta releases, isn't it? So that is beta testing. Now let's go back to this who does what to test in user acceptance testing. So basically the requirements are properly tested, and here acceptance testing is directly related to the business requirement specification. So we'll be testing the requirements and we'll apply black box testing techniques, and the actual and the expected results are matched, and we do the testing so that we make sure that there is no major issues or no issues in fact left in the system before the production release. So who is doing it? Users and users. Method is the black box technique. Tools, we do comparison and regression testing, and what all we need to be educated about is the testing methodologies, what we are following. So effective use of tools, like if you are doing cross browser testing, let's say, so we should know how to use a browser stack or any other cross browser tools which you are using, so that we know that it's being tested in all the browsers. So if you're doing load testing or security testing, we should be aware about those tools also. We should have good product knowledge if at all we are doing the acceptance testing. And of course the business release strategies, the business flow and the business release strategies are very important to be known as an acceptance tester, because you have to think directly as an end user and as a client. So when we are doing the acceptance testing. So today we learned about UAT testing. It's also called customer acceptance testing. It's the last phase of the testing cycle. And there are two types of UAT, alpha and beta. We learned about what is the difference between alpha and beta. We checked the diagram, which diagram show that we should have different servers for dev, QA, UAT and production, and how the code is moving from one server to another server. And we are doing alpha testing at the developer side by the developers, testers and our team which is sent by the client who act as testers. And the beta testing is done at the client side by a team who is appointed by the client as the end user or actual end users, but it should happen at the client side. So that is the difference between alpha and beta testing. And finally there is a production release which happens. So that's all from my side today. We'll learn more in the next upcoming sessions about testing. Till then, thank you.